Good morning. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Mindset Monday. And what I want to say is welcome back to Mindset Monday because it has been a hot minute since I have been on. I have been working with an amazing company called Lumari Pro, creating content for them. They're an online platform helping salon owners and suite owners build incredible businesses. So, the beginning of this year, I was creating, I don't know, about 90 videos of content. And I'm not the only content creator for them. There's some amazing educators as well. So I have completed my mission, I've completed my project, and I am here back doing my work, my favorite work, which is being with you guys at our Mindset Mondays. So thank you so much for being here. If you're here, go ahead and pop in the comments where you're from, what salon you're from. Both I'm on Facebook this morning and on Instagram Live. And this will be recorded on my YouTube channel as well. So good morning, my friends. Hi, Con. Good to see you. Good to see you, my Insta friends coming in. Today, the topic of our live is going to be the leadership superpower nobody talks about. And I am super excited to be here today. So listen, I want to talk about the superpower that nobody really talks about in leadership. And I think you might be surprised at what it is. The superpower that nobody talks about is, as a leader, is what our greatest weakness is. That's the superpower. In all my years, right? I kept thinking like our superpower were all the things that we say when people ask what we're good at. And so when I usually ask people what they're good at and what got them to where they are, they're going to say to me that I'm a great communicator. I'm a great stylist. I'm a great coach. I am very driven. I have a lot of grit, right? But your greatest strength as a leader is knowing what your biggest weakness is. Because I think our comfort zone as a leader is to stay where we're comfortable. That's why they call it a comfort zone. But I want to say, and I want to ask you, where are you uncomfortable? So think about that for a minute. Think about your greatest weakness as a leader, not hiding it, not defending it, not pretending it doesn't exist, but owning it, knowing it, owning it, not defending it, and understanding how it impacts our team. I want to say hey to Idaho out there. I want to say hey to Andre and Holly and George. Good to see you guys. Thank you so much for joining. I know it's been a minute. We're talking about, as a leader, what is our biggest strength? And our biggest strength is our biggest weakness. And I don't even know if that's really about leadership or it's about being human in life, is that where we feel the most comfortable is where we're strong. And we don't want to look at where we have our weaknesses or our fallbacks. But let's be honest. Most of us became leaders because we're good at something. We're great at teaching. We're great at communicating. We are good with people. Maybe we're good with numbers. Maybe we're a great visionary, right? Your strengths will get you promoted, but your blind spots will limit your growth. In general, we could talk about leadership or we could talk about life, but I'm here for all of it, right? And I'm going to share my own leadership blind spot. And some of you that are on here that have worked with me for a long time, whether you've walked by me as my friend, I have some of my staff on here today, and while I'm thinking about my blind spot, I want you to be thinking about yours. All right, so think about it because I'm going to have you drop it in the comments. But one of my blind spots is that I move too fast. And some people might think that's a strength. And I think in a lot of ways, and even in my current business, so I have two businesses now. I sold my salons and I'm a business coach and I also do real estate. And I am a fast mover. And I think people would say, you're quick. And I am quick. I respond quick. I take action quick. But there have been times in my leadership journey and in my current journey where I move too fast. And as a leader, when we move too fast because we know our vision and we know our why, we don't bring people along for the ride. Does that make sense to anybody? Is that resonating? So we know where we want to go. So we just jump in and take people there. We're like, well, I'm going and you're going too. And we do not stop to think that our staff hasn't had a chance to process if that makes sense for them, if that feels like it works for them, if they even know what it means to them and why they should get on board. So my work in life is to take a beat, is to slow down. Now, some people may have a blind spot where they don't like confrontation and they don't want to talk to anybody about anything that could be wrong, which really upholds the culture in your company, right? So that's called coaching. So we have to be able to coach to the good and coach to the uncomfortable, I'll call it. Think about where your blind spot is. And I want you to write that down. I shared with you my blind spot was moving too fast. And I learned that as a young leader, as an early leader, I learned that very early on. And how I learned that was when I wanted my team to do something, I would just come out and say, this is what we're doing, but I wouldn't do anything to get them on board. And so when they weren't on board, I'd be pissed. I'd be pissed because they couldn't read my mind. I'd be pissed because they weren't doing what I thought they should be doing. But in their defense, they were not even connected with the reason why we were doing what we were doing. I was in getting my hair done yesterday by my colorist, and I were talking, and she was my colorist when I owned the salons, and of course I still go to her now. And she was saying to me, and I never really thought about this, she said, do you remember when we would have these salon celebrations and you would do these exercises where you'd hand out money and you were talking to us about bills and our own bills and how we afford the bills in the company, and you'd hand out money and each dollar was a certain expense, and we'd have to go around the room and talk about the P&L and what percentage of education took up the profit and loss and what percentage of payroll and what percentage of employee benefits. And I just never even thought back to that. Those aren't like my core memories of leadership, but as somebody that was my employee, that was one of her core memories. It really hit me today as I was preparing for this live that I wasn't like that in the beginning. I didn't have the self-awareness that what my strength was, which was moving quickly and getting things done, was also my weakness and killed people off. So if I just showed up and said, we're budgeting and these are the things we need to do to budget, instead of took people on a journey of what it took to run a business, what it took to run a household, then they were on board. And because that was one of her core memories, I thought to myself, like, wow, I wasn't like that in the beginning, and I got smacked down so many times and my leadership journey where I'd go home crying because I couldn't get through to people, or I would spend so much time launching a program that never got legs and went anywhere. And when she told me that yesterday, I was like, wow, I was really committed to being the best leader that I could be. And I had to do the hard work. And that hard work is saying, what am I not good at? Where are my blind spots? And how do I have to be more self-aware? In fact, when I think about our greatest leadership quality is knowing our weakness or weaknesses. God, that's so powerful when you think about it, right? When I think back to, I'm going to just say the thousands of salon owners I've coached over my career, what do we end up focusing on is what their weaknesses are. Yes, we know the strengths got them and got you to where you are today. But the things that matter right now are where you are not focused on or where you have a blind spot. So jot down in the comments either on Facebook or Instagram, and this will be recorded on YouTube later. What is your biggest blind spot? So go ahead and write that down, because being vulnerable and being honest, honestly, is step one. If we can't be honest around our blind spot, we're not going to grow. When I have owners that show up in my coaching sessions where they have issues, and we're talking about, I'm trying to dig around to find not what you're bad at, but where is the weakness that could be causing some root problem to where you are not getting on board, or your team's not getting on board with what you want them to get on board with, or you have people quitting, or you have a negative morale in your company. It is coming from somewhere. So, okay, I have somebody on here saying I give too many chances. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for saying that, because so many people give too many chances. I can't even tell you how many conversations I've had with my coaching clients this week about at what point are you going to draw the line? Because when we give too many chances, what does that do? Not only is it telling the person you're giving too many chances to that the behavior is okay, but the bigger problem, the bigger blind spot, is your messaging to the rest of your staff is that it's okay. That what that person is showing up and doing is perfectly fine. That is a system breakdown, and it might be a courage breakdown. And so I get that. I've been there. I have not wanted to have tough conversations that I've had. I've not wanted to. I have forced myself to, though, when I see that every conversation we choose to not have creates the very culture that we are in right now, right this minute. So what conversations are you choosing to not have? All right. So thank you so much for putting that in there. She also said, I struggle with knowing what they are in a time of struggle, and I hate to kick them when they're down. Okay. We need to have a longer conversation. So that's really building up. And I think that what you're talking about is not having a system of boundaries. And so when we're giving too much, it's because usually we don't have a system of, once we're talking to somebody about something, we have an initial conversation, a coaching. What's your system for coaching? Where is it that you draw the line, right? And maybe if they do it again, then it becomes a warning. And then if they do it again, maybe they're on probation, and they have the chance to turn it around. This isn't about us kicking them when they're down. This is about us holding the highest and best good for everybody in our company. So by not kicking them when they're down, they're kicking the company, and the company's going down. And I don't know about you, but I invested my whole life in my businesses, financially, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. 32 years. I invested myself in that company, and I got to a point, and I think a healthy point, where I'll be damned if I'm going to let one person, because they can't get out of their own shit, to bring my company down. Now, am I hardcore about giving people chances? No. I don't respond out of emotion. I respond out of the facts. And I think that's a good place to start. And knowing that blind spot for you is a good place for you to start. Thank you for putting that in there. I don't see anyone else had the courage to put their blind spot in there. But as a coach of salon owners, I see patterns for sure. So some leaders are incredible visionaries. If you feel that you are that, maybe you avoid accountability conversations because you're very caught up in the vision. Some are phenomenal coaches, but struggle with systems and numbers. Some have amazing relationships, but have difficulty making tough decisions. Some are highly analytical, but forget the emotional connection side. So every strength has a shadow side. I love that saying. Every strength has a shadow side. We all have them. We all have more than one. I'm here to tell you, we're human. But this is why awareness matters. And like I said, I think learning early on when I got kicked so many times, I was a young leader. I was a 27-year-old salon owner that didn't experience a ton of life, 27 years old, having to figure out what my own boundaries were, having to learn through the school of hard knocks. Not everything was through looking at my numbers. I had to learn how to take a stand for myself and at the same time be loving, tough love, set boundaries, and stick to my word. But I'll tell you something that really was a game changer for me around that was every time something happened where I got kicked down and I'd go home crying, or I'd sit in my car and I'm like, God, when are you going to get it together? I would ask myself, what's your piece in this? What's your piece, Carrie? This happened. Somebody did something crappy. You're pissed off at them. You got kicked in the gut. But what's your piece? What did you decide to not see? What did you decide that it wasn't a big enough deal to do anything about it? That's your piece in it. And if we can look in the mirror and say, what's my piece in everything? Then we can celebrate our wins and we can also take a look at our blind spots, because when something great happens, you can also say, what was my piece in it? What did I do really well that got us to this huge win? And when something crappy happens, you equally have to be able to say, what did I do? What was my piece in this to get us where we are today? That's what I ask of my team too. Let's be able to celebrate your wins. And when something is going on that's funky, it's also, you don't have to be defensive around what's happening. Be open to the blind spots. Most people avoid their weaknesses because they're uncomfortable. Who can relate to that? Throw me a comment. Am I out here alone? Throw me a comment. It's easier to stay where we're naturally talented, but growth doesn't happen through comfort. In fact, my clients that I work with one-on-one, my coaching clients that have the vulnerability to break down, to be able to just say, I don't know how to do it. Help me do that. Help me find a resource for this, that, or the other thing, are the ones that grow the most. They're not the smartest. They're not the most talented. They're the most honest. They're the ones that can say, you know what? I don't have the answers, but I'm going to get the answers. I don't know why this keeps happening to me, but I'm going to figure out a system that I can institute so that it doesn't keep happening to me. And for you out there that said, hey, my biggest blind spot is that I'm too easy on people, it probably means you don't have a system to set boundaries. So maybe it's working on your systems and also working on your courage to have tough conversations. There are 3 questions that I think every leader should ask themselves. So are you ready for them? Question 1. What feedback do I hear repeatedly? Maybe people tell you, you move too fast. Maybe they don't tell you that you move too fast. Maybe they are just not getting on board and you have to deduce that you're moving too fast. Maybe some people aren't going to have the courage to come out and say, you don't delegate enough, you avoid conflict, you micromanage. Maybe people won't tell you those things in those words, but they will show you by the actions they repeatedly do that there is a miss. And what feedback, whether it's by words or by actions, do you keep getting over and over and over again that you need to look at? When someone tells me something once, I think, oh, okay, well, thanks for the feedback. When I hear the same thing twice, if not 3 times, I'm like, Houston, we've got a problem, right? So I'm going to need to look at that. So question 1, what feedback do I repeatedly hear? Question 2, what frustrates my team? Not what frustrates me, I could be just skipping along, thinking I'm doing everything right. But what frustrates my team? Leadership isn't about intention. Leadership is about impact. It's also about optics. So I might have, as an example, this great intention to have a community, a family environment in my business. And I don't want to be too hard on anybody. And I want everybody to feel included. And I don't want to ever create any bad blood. And that's my intention. And so I'm walking around exercising these behaviors with this intention. But the optics that my team are seeing are different than what my intention is that's being pushed out. I'm pushing out what I want and I have this intention. My team are seeing something and seeing me in a different way. They're seeing me as not having a backbone. They're seeing me as not caring for my culture. They're seeing me as not taking a stand for what is going on in the company. Their optic is that I don't have a backbone. It's not about my intention, it's about the impact. So the question, what frustrates my team, is something that you need to get yourself sorted with and take a look at, even though I might have the right intention. Did I go about it the right way? Even though I had the right intention, did I go about it the right way? The third question, what am I constantly compensating for? Now, this is a powerful question. What am I constantly compensating for? What area do you constantly feel like you're working around? Because that's where your growth is going to happen, where you are doing a workaround. I think this is where we get stuck as leaders. We think that our weakness is our failure, when I'm here to tell you that our weakness is our strength. Weakness simply means awareness is required in that certain area. The strong leaders I know say things like, I don't know. I need help. Can you teach me? That's not my strength. I got that wrong. That isn't weakness, people. That's confidence. Now, it does take confidence to say, I don't know how to do that. I don't know what I should be doing in this situation. The next thing that follows that, though, is figuring out what to do and then doing that next right thing. Knowing isn't enough. Saying I don't know how to do it isn't going to get you off the hook as a leader that doesn't know their ass from their elbow. Saying I don't know, but I'm going to get the answers and I'm going to let you know what that answer is in this short amount of time. That's a confident leader. And then figuring out what that answer is and taking the action of fixing it, of helping somebody get to where they need to go because of it. You can't just sit on this idea of, I got that wrong. You could say I got that wrong. I want you to be able to say I got that wrong if you got it wrong. But I also want you to be able to say, these are the things I'm going to do to make sure that I don't get that wrong again. I can't be 100% sure I won't get it wrong, but these are the things I'm going to do to make sure that I get it right more than I get it wrong. So self-awareness and self-work, you have to do the work. Being a great leader, running a great company, is doing the work on yourself. Your company right now is a reflection of how you show up. You could have the best and greatest intention, but if you are not creating the optics, the team optics, that your team know what the vision is, align with that vision for their own, know what the actions and behaviors and words are to get them on their path so they can continue to align with that company, it is going to be challenging. You don't have to be great at everything. In fact, you shouldn't be great at everything. I knew the areas that I needed help in, and I was not ashamed to go out and find people to help me in those areas. I am not good at cleaning my house. So guess what I've had to do? Yep, I had to go get somebody to help me clean my house. I had to get a cleaning person, right? So you might not be good at cleaning your company. Well, then maybe you need a cleaning crew. You need a strategy. If numbers aren't your strength, get support. If difficult conversations aren't your strength, learn the skill. The help is out there. If organization isn't your strength, create the systems. If delegation isn't your strength, practice it like a muscle. I had a client say to me this past week that I was working with, she was having some issues with her systems around setting boundaries, unlike what we've been talking about here. And so many chances and so many chances. And I said, what is the system when somebody is violating the code of conduct in the business? What's the system? What are your non-negotiables? What are the things that you'll give leeway to? And what are the things that you are drawing a hard line in the sand? And then what is the system to follow up to make sure there's either change or there is termination, or what I call liberation? So she said to me, well, where do I draw a line in the sand and start new? So now I'm going to come up with these systems, and do I just start new right now with everything? And how do I launch that to my team? I said, absolutely not. It's one action at a time. You come up with a system yourself and you start instituting that action. You start in and you follow up on that action. Not everything has to be a big launch and a big change. Some things do when there's a big culture shift. But when you're working on exercising these muscles called, I'm going to take a stand for my culture. I don't want people coming in out of dress code anymore. I don't want a negative morale. We have to go deeper into what that means, right? So when you don't want these things you're seeing, start making small, consistent changes to get you to where you want to be. Does that make sense? You need a strategy. All right, your challenge for the week. We're on time today, you guys. This feels so good to be back and be with you guys. I love seeing my peeps that I haven't seen in so long. So I just want to tell you, thank you so much, just anyway, for stopping by. And I'm going to give you your challenge for the week. And I also want you guys to reach out. I have an amazing mastermind group coming up called Masterminding Your Leadership that's starting in July. It's going to run for 6 months. There's going to be an amazing industry great once a month that'll be up close and personal. I am limiting the seating, but you can go on my website to carriedavisconsulting.com, and there's a little orange button in the right corner called Masterminding Your Leadership or Mastermind Group. Go there, look to see who the speakers are. I'm so excited. We're going to have Van Council, Win Claybaugh, James Morrison, Luca Boccia, Gordon Miller, Lupe Voss. We have a great lineup and great topics. So if you're interested, go head over there, sign up. It'll start, I believe, July 20th. But your challenge for the week is, I want to leave you with this. Identify one of your leadership weaknesses. Identify that. It could be big or small. I want you to write it down. Don't judge it. Don't defend it. Simply acknowledge it and then ask, what is the one thing I can do to improve it? Not next month, not in 3 months, but like this week. What can I do to improve that? Because small awarenesses and small actions make really big transformations. The best leaders aren't the ones who have all the answers. They're the ones who keep growing. They're willing to look in the mirror. They're willing to get uncomfortable. They're willing to evolve. And that's what leadership really is. It's not perfection. It's saying, how can I continue to get better? And when you get better as a human, you get better as a leader. When you get better as a leader, you get better as a human. There's no downside to it other than it gets a little uncomfortable sometimes. You might shed some tears. You might get frustrated. It's okay. It's all a part of being human. It was amazing to be here with you guys today. And stay tuned for my next live. I don't know if I'll be here every week or maybe every other week, but Stay tuned. I will ping you if you guys want to go to carriedavisconsulting.com, sign up, and you will get my newsletters, which will also give you a link and let you know when my next Mindset Mondays are. But for today, my heart is so full. It was so good to be with you and to see so many of you that it has just been, I don't know, 6 or 7 months. That's a long time. So thank you again for being here. Have an amazing day, an amazing week. And it's okay to be human. You just keep going. Mwah. Take care. Bye.